Hey everybody, welcome back to Ready Steady Play.
Good to see you.
We've just finished chapter 1 of Act 1 of Avalon, and we've got activated our second men here, and now we've kind of... well, it's the second we've activated, but it's the third active men here in our playthrough.
Yeah.
We've got Mr. Four-Dweller out because he didn't... Sir not appearing in this playthrough.
No.
My rates are too expensive.
I do believe he was there in the bit that it wouldn't allow me to go into.
True story. He was probably in the Four-Dweller
Fortress
Tuatha. And so we've got to Stampede. We've got 3 days left on the men here. We've just activated, and we've sort of run out of areas to go in the demo. So we've kind of called this to a close.
Yeah.
But there is still some stuff in the demo for us to explore, and that's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, I find it funny how much of the event deck we have yet to see.
So much. And of the bits that we've explored, there's so much that we've still yet to explore.
Yeah,
with the bits that we've uncovered.
Although I do feel at one point I wasn't very involved in a conversation that I was being dragged to. And I mean that literally dragged.
Yeah, well, I just needed your statuses to unlock the quest tree, the dialogue tree, and that's something that's interesting. I suppose there were, if you were watching this playthrough with us, or if you're just joining us now, there are some elements of this game that are clearly not yet final.
But that's to be expected, I think.
Yeah, it is a prototype.
So. Absolutely, this is a pre-kickstarter prototype, but you can be forgiven for thinking that it might not be, just because Awakened Realms make very pretty things.
It's so. Like, just there's so much stuff to say that it's a prototype.
This artwork, it's amazing.
Yeah, the artwork. I'm looking for where's the best. The artwork on these cards is really good. I mean, the artwork on our boards even seems really good. I mean, I've played a lot of games where the artwork is not this good,
and that'd be the final game,
and that'll be the final product. Exactly right. You know,
it's such cool.
And then you've got these, miniatures as well, and they look great and they look complete.
Yeah.
And yet it's not on Kickstarter yet. So I guess what we're saying is that where it came out a bit more was in the sort of the mechanics of the game. I think most apparent actually was on the event deck when we completely outraced it. We were like over here exploring this, and it's like when you're ready to leave your hometown, we're like
I feel like that should have come up earlier.
Yeah, but so I think there are some balancing things that still need to be sorted out. Fortunately, they will be, I'm sure, following a successful Kickstarter campaign. I actually said that in the rules instead of video. I was like, if it funds, and someone commented like, this will fund in 5 minutes. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, although
it already looks.
They don't need my support, my evangelizing.
Yeah, but I did find it funny. I mean, I know this is very specific to our playthrough, but Blood Moon.
Yeah, two Blood Moon rabbits. Yeah, that's uncanny.
Like that's just fun.
And having looked through some of these encounter decks, we were incredibly lucky not to encounter some of the things that could have been. There are some really mean beasties in this purple deck, which you didn't even get to see in our playthrough.
There's some bloody mean beasties in this deck and this deck.
Absolutely.
This one I'm not so sure about. That one we try to avoid at all costs.
But what we do know is that for the final product, there will be certain encounters that are taken out because they're very difficult, and then you will be shuffling these into the encounter deck as the weirdness takes over and as time progresses. So there will be more of a sense, I think, of this sort of apocalyptic
scaling
oncoming
challenge.
Apocalypse of the island. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that way.
Out.
I mean, with the Guardians especially, these are very strong. They are semi-permanent. So you can have situations where they come out and you're just like, oh my god. Or in other times you might just laugh at them. But it all depends on as a party where you're going to be. So having that.
But what it leads to, and I think this might be especially apparent in our playthrough, was that the difficulty curve seemed a little off. We really struggled near the start, and then by the time we're into day 2, which you can tell because we took our suits off, we were finding it a lot easier. And you've changed your shirt.
Don't sound so surprised. God damn it.
But you've thrown me off my point. What was my point?
Insulting me, apparently.
But so I think yeah, with the balancing of these cards and things, that difficulty curve will be righted so that because the point is for the game. Yeah, this was where I was going. The point is for the game to be very, very difficult throughout. It's always supposed to be a challenge. It's always supposed to be sort of forcing you to really think about your decisions and really think about, for example, when you're in Farshire, do you go down the dark alley with the hag?
Yeah.
You should be scared of those kinds of decisions and making the wrong ones or taking a risk.
Yeah, you don't want to be flippant with them. It requires...
Well, I believe I can be flippant with them with the lack of empathy, little caution, and outright aggression.
Yeah.
Well, one of these days you're going to be non-empathetic and you're going to get some kind of curse.
I love the fact that just no empathy seemed to be actively helping me. I strongly think that was pure luck on my part, though.
Pure luck. Yeah, well, you never went into a blue diplomacy encounter without the help of Maggot or Eileen.
Hello, friend.
Hello, friend.
Eileen. But I was very upset when we got to Stampede and the game stopped.
Yeah, I really wanted to go into the Four Dweller City. I really wanted to see...
I really wanted to go into Tuatha.
I just thought, that sounds cool. It's got a wall of bone.
When I saw there was an entry for Climb Down the Other Side, I was like, oh my god, they shouldn't do that without me, but I'm going to tell them to do it anyway. And then it said, we haven't developed this yet. And I was like, oh.
Shame.
But that's the thing. It's a lot of this... Obviously, we've got a limited version of the game, and it's going to change. But how much of the map have we not explored? There's so much we could do again, and if we do another playthrough, and this is just the demo version. But if we do another playthrough,
I believe the final core set that's coming to Kickstarter will have 3 sets of 64 cards, and I believe it's the island 3 times over at different states.
Yeah, because it jumps forward in time.
Exactly. Yeah. So the final version is 3 acts with each chapter containing 14 to 50 with each act containing 14 or 15 chapters, and so you sort of each act you reset it. I think you take on new heroes, but their adventure is affected by the actions of your previous heroes, so there's this sort of legacy campaign element.
I have a feeling that some of my actions may or may not come back to haunt us later on, but that's the question, is I have no idea what impact this is going to have. So we're actually playing 3 games, not 1. And it's like,
but if you think about how much adventure we got out of 9 cards, and then there's going to be 64.
Yeah.
Plus, I think they mentioned add-ons with more cards and stuff. So plenty of opportunity to get stuck in.
Definitely. And I feel the fact that while we were doing it, time just seems to evaporate. So
I was so engaged.
Exactly right. It's a very engaging, and I think that's testament to how good it is as a game.
Yes, definitely.
That you get so involved and want to explore and want to do well and want to see what the next adventure is.
Yeah, and when we first set out as well, I was like, why do we have to have pre-made characters? Why can't we just make our own characters and our own stories? And then by the end, I was like, no, I want to see what happens. I felt actually Eiley out of the 3 of them was sort of the least developed. Maybe that was my fault, but Bayor and Maggot I really felt sort of brought something to the story and brought something to the table.
Definitely.
Well, I brought a very special hammer. No. Eventually.
But I think it was because actually pure happenstance we didn't come across Eiley's stories in the journal.
Correct.
True. And there's got to be places where
her story is explored.
No, I was just going to say there's a lot of druid locations that we discovered in this playthrough, which lends itself to this character, so you just naturally go, oh well,
and
Maggot should go there, but there's no reason for Maggot to go there. I think it's just it could be that it's a druid location that's more in depth with your character.
But you had your whole encounter over here in the Charred Conclave, and you had the business going on both down in the Forlorn Swords, and then later over here with your master's body. And
you could have had one over here that we just didn't go to.
I could have had, that's what I'm saying, I could have had as many encounters in the journal, but we just missed them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, like one of them, the one in the city, that was purely based on my character sheet. Anyone could have done that. It's just, it was just so happened that I'd gone in the right direction to get it.
But I was... And, I was just sort of saying it in passing, but I actually also liked the way we were sort of developing into different roles.
I like this. I like
Yeah.
having this thing. I don't know. I think it just looks very appealing to me.
I agree. I really like this character board. The only thing I would say that kind of gets me sometimes is where you're. I mean, I'm fairly min-maxing on this.
What? You're not going for diplomacy?
I've got him for that, and I've got you for that. But that's the thing. Like, I have no idea if this is the correct option to do it, and I might come up to a point where I'm going to get slapped in the face because I haven't invested at all, and that lends itself to party play.
Yeah.
But maybe it would be more challenging in a solo playthrough because you kind of have to be a little bit of everything, so you wouldn't have the ability to specialise.
But presumably you would have more experience in which to develop your character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But or maybe what you do is you just go sort of like full combat warrior and then just never go to towns. I don't know if that would even be possible. Or like, just minimize your exposure to towns.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. Diplomacy...
I mean, the thing is, the only diplomacy encounter you had turned into a fight.
Yeah.
Of course it did. Was anyone really surprised by that?
Nobody was surprised, but...
that whole mechanic of diplomacy is really interesting as well.
Yeah.
You mean the card sequence?
Yeah. I've never seen anything like that before. No, I'm not saying it's not new.
I really liked it too.
But it's not anything I've played.
It was an interesting puzzle, and I liked how, in order to play cards down in the sequence, they had to match up with statistics that you'd unlocked.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
but that then made it incredibly difficult at the same time.
Well,
because if you were then having to have something nearer the start, and this is what we probably addressed a little bit earlier, is just balancing out the difficulty.
The counter as well, like where you make your chain can be broken by someone.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to recreate the chain or take cards out.
Yeah. But the whole mechanic of it, I think, is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I feel like what we saw here is a very solid proof of concept that requires a bit more development. More finesse. I actually think that the way they've got this leveling up mechanic here kind of limits their design space. I like all of it in theory. I feel like maybe there should be some more dots or more spaces on the cards for things to sort of increase or decrease. Like, I'd like to see if you get aggression 5, there's a super aggression combat card you can then put in your deck or something like that. But again,
bite his face off.
I really, really like it in theory. But I did feel like maybe in this prototype it was a little limited, the spaces, the options we had.
Yeah.
But that's okay because there's plenty of time to develop that.
Yeah.
And I mean, for a start, we had these combat cards that you could upgrade and put into your combat deck, which were really, really, really cool. I love this idea. I love the idea that you can sort of level up by developing your decks and level up by improving your statistics. All of these combat decks will be unique to your character in the final version of the game. So it will be cool to see Bayor having all these combat cards and all these different things. But what I would actually like to see as well is sort of options to develop characters in different ways as well. Like Bayor became the combat character because he started with more combat stats.
Yeah, I started with 2 aggression.
But I think if you're going to be playing for, if we were playing for however long, but if you're saying it takes 8 hours to do an act or something, I don't know how long it does.
I think it would take a long while.
A long while to do an act, and there's...
Well, how long have
we've just done one chapter out of 14 or 15 in Act 1?
Yeah.
It's the long haul game.
It's the long haul game, and so if that's the case, they really need the leveling system to be robust enough to carry through that.
Exactly.
And what I really like all of what I've seen of it here, but the version that's presented here in the prototype is obviously much too limited for a game that's 15 chapters long.
Correct. Yeah. I totally agree.
That's okay, because I think that there will be... I'd love to see us be able to upgrade sort of these as well. Like, can I have more hit points instead of, like, pouring points into my stats? Maybe I can upgrade all of these things. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what they'll do with it, but I do feel like this is a very strong base to make a very cool and interesting system.
I agree.
The one thing, going to the character boards again, the one thing I would say, I love the unique downside and ability. I love the idea behind that.
Yeah.
I really feel like some of the characters had much more impactful downsides and upsides. I mean,
Hello.
No, but the downside with Maggot was it's by chance.
Maggot's recovering addict disadvantage is or character flaw is a much, much bigger deal than mine or Bayor's.
Yeah, mine is easier to avoid because I just know I have to always have food and I have to always have at least 2 energy to not be exhausted, but it's more important that I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And mine's sort of like a double damned if you do. So mine is like, you don't want to be in land with an inactive men here. And then if you are, you'll have a bit extra punishment.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't, I mean, provided we're not messing up catastrophically, it feels like it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah. But then again, on the upside, Healing Hands was used.
Healing Herbs
was used.
Was the only ability we actually used.
Well, we didn't need to use meditation because of how we managed to get around the magic
I actually forgot about it.
Did you?
Yeah, I forgot about it.
But
definitely about halfway through the first session.
I think
we didn't need it.
But I don't think... one, we didn't... Potentially we didn't need it. But 2, I think we didn't use it because I was so weakened.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that much energy to spare.
Yeah. But then, I mean, talking of energy, my one is craft. We did not use it once because that is... From full health, that will exhaust... From full energy, that will exhaust me. The energy cost for that was very, very high, and that stopped me from wanting to use it.
Yeah, it's very expensive to write off a day.
That is literally my entire day to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be...
I'm confident that these abilities will see further balance.
Yeah.
And these flaws will see further balance.
Again,
as
well. it's a working prototype.
Yeah, but exactly. I love the concept behind it. It makes all the characters feel quite unique, especially when it's crap. We've got to let so and so do this because otherwise this downside happens. And I mean, even with Maggot, we can't let Maggot stay in a place where there's a potential to get a nightmare because that is terrible.
Because some nightmares are not so bad. Some of them are really bad.
Yeah.
Like the one in the 4-dweller mounds I caught sight of was really, really bad, and you were very close to going insane there.
Yeah.
But the perilous recluse.
And then that would trigger the end of the game, just about, because you get...
Well, actually, the insane cards are going to cripple you, but they actually don't take you out of the game.
Cripple you more.
Like, you can continue functioning with them, but you'll just be much, much, much less effective.
Yeah.
Can you
ever get rid of it?
Yeah.
No. Once you're insane for life.
See...
I'm mad and you're mad, but that's okay.
So, and that's coming back to it is a harsh game,
but I don't know. It's not put off my enjoyment of it.
Yeah, yes. I've still I really like how mechanical the leveling up the character stuff is and the combat is in combination with the storybook. Because I feel like
the storybook
that could be so frustrating if I was spending valuable resources or stamina or time to explore the storybook and getting back just useless stuff. And what was interesting was when I was up at the Mirror Lake, and I basically did nothing, and nothing really happened. I feel like that could have been very frustrating. I could have found it very frustrating, and I didn't. I actually just thought, well,
kind of funny.
It's kind of funny. I'm glad I found out what I found out, even if it was nothing really important. You know, maybe there is something I could... But it left me with a sense of, I could go away and maybe improve and come back and try again. Yeah. Or maybe, I won't, and that's okay because there's more stuff to discover. And I liked that was my reaction instead of, well, that was a big waste of time.
Yeah.
Which could easily have been my response. And I feel like there's something that the game has done, something imperceptible that's made me feel that way.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's as close to the edge as we came a few times, in terms of the combat. In terms of the edge of scary combat, scary diplomacy thing, we never stopped enjoying it. It didn't become a point of, I just want to get through this, I'm just done with this game. We've played games before where it gets frustrating. This did not feel frustrating. Well, okay.
No, I didn't. No, I'm only teasing. No. What I found, and it's not frustrating. But it's a challenge, and it was a good challenge because all I had in the back of my mind all the time was, oh my god, these are going to go out. We need to do something, and maybe that's a little bit of a where it may feel like it's a bit too hard. It felt like we couldn't. Yeah, like we couldn't potentially explore as much as we could because we felt like there was other things that we needed to concentrate on.
But I feel like the menhirs are a very, very interesting mechanic. That's obviously sort of fundamental to how this is working. Everything is like, hint, menhirs. Sort them out.
Yeah.
And we did look at relighting the Kaunak Farmhold menhir. The price was incredibly expensive. We needed a special item that is present in the deck, but we had no idea how to find, and we couldn't find any clues about how to find it, and that was a little frustrating. But that, on the other hand, relighting any of these other 2 menhirs that we'd lit would have the same price to relight as we'd already spent. And so I think it leads you to asking yourself these important questions, like, have I finished exploring this area? Do I think there's enough left to explore here to warrant relighting the menhir? But it also gives you a sense of momentum, a sense of moving on, having to move on. I'm not sure about the diminishing days.
Yeah.
This one lasting for 3 days feels very harsh.
Yeah, the thing is the diminishing time. So it has a standard amount of time it's lit for, and then the size of your party. So the amount of people you're playing through is then minus that many days.
Yeah. But that could have just been an oversight on my part, just not checking. Like, I don't know if this one is lasts for a lot longer.
But the thing is, are we supposed to know that?
Are we supposed? I think we're supposed to know that.
Yeah, it does.
No, I know it's on the page, but is that knowledge we're supposed to have so we can go, well, it's not worth lighting that one when this one lasts 2 days longer, for example?
I feel you should know that, because that gives you a strategic decision about which one you go for.
It gives you
you're having a strategic decision about what you need to pay for it. So I think you need to also factor in of what you're paying, how long you're getting it for.
Yeah, to be fair, actually, we went for this one because it was budget, didn't we?
Yeah.
So if you're maybe it's left to you to understand that if you're paying more, you're going to get more, right? That's a pretty solid principle.
But even then, I'm not a massive fan of having just a straight up minus to that, because it takes no account of how your game has gone. So you could have only just had enough resources to barely do this on the last day, and now it lasts for next to no time, and you've got to get resources for another one that you couldn't afford before you lit that one.
But what I think the missing sort of design element here is that we don't know. I assume that they'll take into account the menhirs, their cost, their time frame, and the lands around.
Yeah.
So you might find the lands around this one are a lot more productive or forgiving to a group, to a wounded party, whereas like one of these other menhirs,
this one and
which could only be lit by a much more competent group, is also surrounded by much more treacherous lands.
I object to the use of the word competent.
Yeah, I'm part of this group.
I know, that's why I object to it. You seem to be quite happy to
talk about myself as incompetent.
I know that we're the best of the worst and those left behind, but still, man, have some pride.
It's gone.
We are the best of the worst. We are the worst.
Look what I had to ally with. My master's so disappointed in me.
But I
need a drink.
I'll drink to that.
But I'm so intrigued about this story. I'm so intrigued.
It's made me want to come back.
Yeah.
About where it goes. I really want to what I liked as well is how by this point there were so many other things going on. Like when we set out from Kaunak, it was like, okay, find the previous group, find a way to fight off the weirdness.
And I think
then by the time we got here, I was like, now I also want to figure out what's going on in Tuatha and where these refugees are going. And when I sent them to Camelot, did I sentence them to death? And you sort of pick up all these little story threads as you go.
And exactly, by picking up these
statuses on the save sheet. Yeah.
Like, how are these going to be used?
Well, also,
when will they come in?
Also,
there's obviously a reason for them in here. So... It adds to the whole, what are they for? And now I want to find out.
And I think, you get a real sense of sort of character development, because you can see here on the save sheet, you've got these 3 restoring order titles that come from the names of 3 of the Knights of the Round Table. And then you've got the Fall of Chivalry as well. So maybe that indicates you can sort of go in multiple directions.
Yeah.
And then down here we've got a little marker that just proves this was a prototype.
But even then, the thing I like, we went to a Farshire and we literally got given a mission that we were afraid to refuse.
Yeah, and that was cool.
Yeah,
right?
We have been we've been embroiled in a political / outright military conflict between 2 rulers.
I really hoped that when we get to Timberwall, we have the option of like betraying her.
Yeah.
Because one thing that was interesting was that the group of heroes from Kaunak went to Timberwall also with a similar mission to fight for Lady Kincaid, and they also betrayed her.
Yeah.
So maybe on the way we can find out why they did that, and then
And
make
see if
our
it's worth
own
it.
decision
Yeah.
about how we would react to that. And that kind of layering of story, I really hope that sort of followed through, because I really feel like they've set it up that way, and there's a promise for a great story here, and I really think like it's got me so hooked.
Well, the thing I've kind of wondered about, because we know that in the actual game there's going to be the next step is so many hundreds of years later.
400 years later, they said.
400 years later.
But that's obviously subject to change.
No, subject to... So it's a later time period. What we're marking off here, is that going to be the equivalent of where we're chasing the previous party? When we play the next round, are we going to be following in our own footsteps? Are we going to be coming across as like, did you have this mark as Bior? Well, this meant this happened, so this is the reaction you get when you mention his name, or you're a descendant or something.
Yeah, adds to the whole replayability.
And until we get there, we're not going to know.
But I also think it's immensely satisfying to get the game out again and see the impact of the game you already played.
Yeah, but I enjoyed this game, and I kind of want to keep playing because I want to see what happens. I like the fact that I've got the triple upgrade. Michael's got it as well. You could also get the upgrade for spirituality. I mean, you've got...
I like the depth of the storybook in combination with what's going on here. Now, it is also marked as a survival game, and you have to eat food every day. I liked that. I liked the placement of that in the game.
That was also something that made you think about what you were
it was something we constantly had to think about, but it wasn't overwhelmingly oppressive.
Yeah.
Well, we managed to keep doing it, so...
We managed to get it done, more or less
skin
all
of
the
teeth
time.
sometimes.
Yeah, and I think if you stop doing that, it could become very disastrous. But what I liked was that, we weren't constantly worried about sort of like finding resources and building fires and all that kind of stuff. So it was a survival game, but it was a very light element of the game and allowed the focus on
the story.
The story. I mean, the story is such a huge part of this game. And the art and the world that they've built is really, really good. I really liked Tuatha. I really want to find out what's going on there. So I think in terms of the world they've built, and the story that they're telling, I'm really intrigued.
No, I know what you mean. It's surprising how in-depth... I mean, for a demo, this is amazingly in-depth, and it hints at even more.
Yeah, so I'm on board.
Need to just scale the bone wall.
I would play again.
I'd
play again.
I'll back it on Kickstarter.
No, I will.
No, I will. Sorry, I didn't realise we were doing a thing then.
No, I'm the Kickstarter one. I will back the Kickstarter.
He's the Kickstarterer.
I am the Kickstarterer. I'm the super backer.
The twisted Kickstarterer.
All right. And on that note, I think,
oh God.
On that
we're
awful pun.
I'll go get my coat.
Hey, that's my coat.
I'm just so sad that it's done, you guys. I just really want to play more and find out what happens.
Maybe we can have
Quick, roll a dice on a 6. No, sorry.
I don't want to... I can't believe this is pre-Kickstarter. I'm going to have to wait so long.
6.
Such a long time to
Sorry,
find out
that
what
time you did an
happens.
8.
All right, Bayor. Maggot. I guess that we're calling it a day.
Yeah?
Yeah. Fun.
Right.
Yes. Let's go to Camelot again real soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming on this adventure.
Thanks
We'll
for
be
watching.
off on more adventures soon, so please come back and join us for those.
See ya.
Bye.